Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and with version 3.25 around the corner, I figured it is finally time to go over the best teams of version 3.2. This is a video we do for every single version, basically just to archive what is good in every single version, as well as just to give people teams of things that they can try to build into. So, things that have changed in version 3.2. This, of course, ended up bringing the controversial UI changes, where basically a good majority of all the UI that wasn't troop-related was pretty much overhauled for a different interface, but there were balance changes that were done as well, the most notable of which is the fact that extra turn traits can no longer multi-trigger. For example, this Aberrath has a huge trait where it gains 2 life every single time it matches a 4 times or 5 times match. Prior to this update, what would basically happen is if you match, let's say, 3-4 times simultaneously, you would end up getting 6 HP. If you do that now, you will only get 2 HP. Similarly, it used to calculate out clumps very weirdly, so if you put like 20 blues all in one little area, it could count 3, 4, 5 times. Now it will only count 1. So anything that has a ability that says on 4 or 5 times gem matches has basically been nerfed very, very hard as of this version. Some of which are still really good though, such as Queen Mab with her freeze, but quite a few of the weaker ones don't really get used much at all. One really noteworthy trait that indirectly got hurt by this quite a bit are all of the links, as well as Queen Aurora. The main reason being, Queen Aurora can only trigger 1 of her 6 links every single time, and everything that only has 1 of these, if you take, let's say, 2 purple simultaneously because you're using a purple spam team, you will only end up getting 1 additional purple instead of 2, or 1 per every single pair. So do keep that in mind, quite a few of these are a bit weaker. Other than that, we ended up getting a new kingdom that brought a new mechanic. This was Merlantis. It ended up bringing the Submerge mechanic. Any troop that is submerged will be able to dodge any full AoE attack. By any, I mean basically only if it's off the ability. Things that it does not work against, which is one of the reasons it's actually pretty bad, include, and is not limited to, traits, stats effects that hit all enemies, traits that hit all enemies, let's see, mana burn off of something like Queen Mab hitting everything, and basically anything that isn't specifically full AoE physical damage or full AoE true damage are basically like the only 2 things it works on. There's a lot that it doesn't, and because of that, it doesn't really get used at all. The most noteworthy ones that it doesn't work on is it doesn't work on Kraken's trait, doesn't work on Queen Mab's mana burn, and it doesn't work on all of the new troops that have gotten the stat reduction, such as Azura, Plague, and such of the such. Anything that's full AoE like that, it will still take it. So basically, bottom line, Submerge is useless. It doesn't get used in any team unless you happen to be up against a team that is running purely full AoE. If they're not running 4 times or 3 times full AoE, you basically never bother with the new mechanic, though there are still some good troops from this kingdom, such as Azura. As far as new troops being added, there actually were quite a lot, more than I could even mention now, but almost every single mythic was pretty decent. Umbra Wolf ended up getting added for Halloween, which has basically a perpetual purple storm, the first of its kind, and many more storms in general were added that has now made different colors more viable, since you can now do a storm and then explode it all. One other noteworthy thing is that Dragon's Claw and Pan's Vale ended up getting a new hero class, both of which are 2 of the strongest hero classes in the entire game. Pan's Vale ended up getting the Bard, which is good for pure yellow, gives +1 to all yellow troops per turn. Similar to another troop that was a mythic that was added that gives +1 all stats to all brown. And also from Dragon's Claw, we get a magic and life buff for all dragons, and it makes even more synergy possibilities for a 4 times or 3 times dragon team. So anyways, let's get into some teams. Before I get into more of the PvP-oriented one, there actually is a new Explore team that was created as of some of the patches, and it is not that. It is this. It is Sunbird, Rowan, and Double Firebomb. It is actually quicker than the previous best, which held for quite a while, and it was the Princess Elspeth, Bombot, Black Manacles, and Troglodyte. Not only is that quite a bit more expensive, but yeah, we get this for cheaper, and it's quicker, so it works out really, really nice. So, yep, just a Sunbird, which is ultra rare, Rowan, which you get for free from the Forest of Thorns Kingdom right over here after you complete the questline, and the double fire bombs. One thing to note about the fire bombs as of the making of this video, and probably for another 2 or 3 weeks, It is currently not within the drop pool. You can only have this if you have gotten it on the event that it came out. How event troops work, of course, in Gems of War is they become available during the event, and they then are out of the drop pool for around 4 to 6 weeks until they are added to the drop pool. So if you try getting yourself a firebomb off of a gold key right now, you unfortunately will not be able to. But if you got it during the event, you'll be able to do things like that. It's a common, really easy to fully trait. It is currently the only common that has empowered because they got rid of scale guards empowered. So you just throw that, get your explosions down, get your really high damages down. Both the Sunbird and the Rowan do full AoE damage. The Sunbird does it based on his HP. The actually, let me go show it to him while we're at it. The Sunbird does it based on his HP, and the Rowan does it based on its armor for a even larger boost ratio. What's also nice is the Sunbird gets a Firestorm whenever a ally dies, and since your Firebomb will literally just kill itself immediately, you automatically get a Firestorm, and of course explosions into a fire or any kind of storm does increase the chance of you actually getting extra turns. So, now that we've gone through all that, let's go through a couple of teams. Before I do that though, one last thing. There were two teams I did want to mention that I'm not particularly going to be showing because they don't use any new troops or mechanics, though they are both pretty often used just on defense or just in general. It is basically any team with Kraken, Forest Troll plus Queen Mab. It's either done Kraken, Forest Troll something Queen Mab or Forest Troll Kraken something Queen Mab are generally the ways it gets built. Really, really strong, even though I was just mentioning how all of these on-effect traits were basically nerfed. They are still so strong of troops that they still get used like crazy. So even after the nerf to try to address them, they still get used a lot. Other than that, there is also the Drain Spam team. A lot of teams running with Scion, there's basically two variants. There's either the Scion Ragnargord into two other troops, or there is, or actually I should say three. There's Scion Ragnargord into two other troops. There's 4 times Drain, and there is a Scion with 3 damage sources behind it. Normally a more mana generating one in second, and then 2 pure damage in the back. So yeah, it's being used quite a bit because of how potent a full mana drain can be. Not to mention it can also get a nice standard 7 mana drain in that can't be silenced, and of course on Skull still gets those pokes. That trait was slightly reduced this patch, but very rarely with a Scion team would you ever be taking multiple purples at once, so it doesn't really feel much of that effect. But those don't actually use anything new, so we will not be covering them. Most of you have probably already seen them a billion times over anyways in PvP. So first off, let's start with some of the Dragon class. We of course are going to be using the new Dragon class in this. Dawnbringer is technically new because a lot of people probably weren't able to afford it on the previous patch, whereas at this point a lot more people probably have this weapon now, even though it was added the previous patch. It is a little bit more relevant now that more people can actually afford to obtain this weapon, but really strong. Currently the strongest weapon in the entire game by a very, very long mile. It is very powerful, full AoE, has the boost based on yellow troops, not only on your own, but the enemies. It gives all allies barrier, and on top of all of that, if there's 13 or more reds, you even get additional magic onto yourself. And with the new Dragon Hero class, it is currently the only hero class in the game with Skull Mitigation at 40%, and it also gets the extra life and magic to all dragons. There are many variants of this team that can be built. Really, whatever your preference is what you would do. This is, of course, more of a Red Day version, if you so choose to use it for something like a Guild War battle. But let's just go through, get all the manas we need, and just get it going. Most of these teams do run off of get either a Gorgolfa or a Dragon Soul up immediately. Sometimes it's used for a Mercy to fill it, sometimes it's used as Dragon Soul. Occasionally you could even use a Karnak, so of course with the Dragon variants, you'd most likely just go with the Dragon Soul. So let's just get the last little bit of our mana. Going to need it off of the Dragon Soul just because it's going to be too hard to try getting him up. I am going to take the... Oh, not the way I meant to take that. I meant to take that to the right. Fail. But I wanted to take that to try to get the red drop. We actually would have gotten it too. Oh, that misclick shall hurt us. I don't think I need to take a skull here, so we're not going to bother with that. We'll just go and take the yellows. We are unfortunately on a -1 yellow. Did not mean to take that earlier. We'll just try for the Cascade here. Take the brown over. Looks like at this point we're going to be a little bit bottlenecked from that, but we'll just go take the red and finally be able to get something off. That's a little bit dangerous because all this time we were able to let the Famine accumulate the mana, so there's a chance he is going to be able to get that poke into us, which would not be good. But we finally get up our big one, the new mythic that came in. This guy hits a static 18 explosion, which is really similar to that of Gorgolfa when fully maxed out. And it also has a pretty high damage output, which can be increased even further by using the Dragon Hero class that keeps gaining magic. Not only that, but when fully traded, it also gains the ability to gain even more magic out of 1 in 4 chance whenever a extra turn is occurred. So we'll just throw this down. That will almost team right there. And now all we need is one little poke. And here, have a skull. Actually, I probably should cast a Dragon Soul. Could have gotten those 6 souls. No, oh well, doesn't matter. But there we go. First battle down. So let's get into the next team. And we will be showing both the two hero classes, just starting with the Dragon hero class, just so we don't have to keep switching back and forth. Next up is basically anything that uses Valkyrie plus Azura. It's really rare that they actually add the best troop in the entire kingdom as the free one you get from completing the quest. But in the case of the new Merlantis kingdom, that basically is the case. Out of every troop currently within the Merlantis kingdom, Azura is by far the most powerful. Not only does she dispel all enemies, she decreases a random stat at a pretty competent amount based on her magic. I think it's 1 plus her magic divided by 2. And that's also boosted by the blue gems on the board, so if you're creating a bunch of blues, you get that even higher. And you also get to explode all the blues, so all that combined together, you end up getting a very, very nice reduction effect, and you just you basically get to keep the enemy down while keep your own mana up. And she also has Arcane, so you get even more reduction. I'm using this in this instance with a Plague, just to make sure they have absolutely nothing to use whatsoever. And we have the Core Vash just for standard mana, just to get rid of their mana. Mana Drain is still very powerful right now, and basically anything that uses it is pretty good in almost any matchup, just because it's always good to have that utility of being able to deny out the enemy team. So right here, we'll go take a ridiculous amount of blue, get every single blue fully capped out with some to spare. We'll just go for a Plague here to make sure you can't get as much mana, that poisons, that disease, everything. We have a Core Vash, so we don't really need it. We'll just go for the Explode. More often than not, you will either be able to get all of the Azura mana back up or get all of your Valkyrie mana back up from doing a cast like that. Unfortunately, we don't have a reach on that Core Vash. I forget if we double hit here, if that Drain will go into it. One way to find out. No, it doesn't. That one wouldn't have to have died to have the Drain leak into it. There's a little bit of a weird glitch / mechanic. So basically, if we would have killed both of those simultaneously, the third slot would have actually been both stunned and mana drained. So that's kind of what I was going for there. I forgot if it actually triggered based on if the other one didn't die or not, but apparently both of them do have to die for that to actually occur. So we do lose our front line right there, not really that big a deal. As long as we keep the Valkyrie plus Azura combo, that's essentially the only thing we need to win every single battle with a team set up like this. Let's keep moving that over, trying to get ourselves an extra turn. Really surprised we are not getting any alignment there. I might still just have to use it to throw it away if we don't get one the following turn. Yeah, he's going to get a cast there. I think I'm just going to cast it without any extra turn, unless I'm missing one. Nope, doesn't look like there's one. So we'll go throw that down onto some green so we can get all the blue explosions. He doesn't really use blue at all, so no need to worry about him taking any of that. It looks like this Dragon Soul wants to revive. That's annoying. Not to mention we're entangled right now, so we're just going to have to keep reducing. But yeah, really good at keeping them all at very low stats. If you go look at this something anymore right now, you can see he's at 0 magic. Many troops, when they have their magic reduced, have very minimal effect. Because almost every troop in the game boosts something based on their magic. So if you are able to reduce it down to nothing, you can make many troops within the game almost unable to do any damage. As you can see, he's only going to do around 1 to 5 damage because he gets to explode some of the skulls every single time he casts. That is down from his normal damage, which would be around a 21 full AoE plus a little bit extra to the first slot. So that is quite a bit of a difference. You can also see we have his attack quite reduced. And more often than not, you can actually zero it out on many of your enemies. Ideally, we'd want it more often than not to actually hit their durability on either their HP or armor. This would, of course, just make the battle end quicker. And when we don't have another damage source, it would definitely be nice. Losing a Core Vash in this particular lineup of this team is a little bit annoying because we don't have as many ways to be able to damage them. But all we need now is just those HP reductions, and now that actually dying is somewhat useful in this particular instance because we will be able to go get that skull in and just keep it repeating. If this Dragon Soul would ever die, that'd be great. Come on now, that's its second revive. Actually lost count at this point. Let's see. Come on now, 1 HP. Well, it's guaranteed dead now. I'm gonna go explode. There we go. Finally, we have killed the Dragon Soul. Success. We have won. Wow, that took way too many attempts. We'll go explode that. It should be enough to kill off the skulls. Never mind, the poison finishes off, and there we go. So that is stat reduction. It's a really safe win, not always the quickest when you lose your damage sources. Hey, Demon Rangel, I know him. And let's go into the next one then. The other one using a Dragon Hero class. There's a couple different ways you can build this. Build this into Gorgolfa. Can build this into any Dragon Hero weapon. In this case, we're doing it with the Mountain Crusher, just so it is a very low mana cost, and so we can cover more of the dragons. One really nice thing about the World Breaker being added to the game is that you are able to do a World Breaker plus a Fair Shra, and this does indeed cover every color in the game. Very similar to that of a Famine Death combo, except this is a different lineup. It's more of a mana generation, high damage output, because you have one of the best AoEs in the game combined with the best single target in the game. While they are a little bit slow to get up, once you get them going, they are good to go. You just either fill all the way into your Dragon Soul or your Pressure or your Gurgulfa if you're running a Gurgulfa for tankiness. I have tested it both ways, and it would appear that Gurgulfa is only worth it if you are up against something that is heavily skull-oriented. If you're not up against something heavily skull-oriented, you are better off going with the Mountain Pressure or some kind of similar other hero weapon that is capable of giving you a mana boost. So right here, we're just going to use it, get our explosion there, and should be able to get everything rolling. Now we'll just go for our heavier hit. If we had a Fairish Ra alignment, we would throw it. He has yellow to purple convert, which also helps fill up quite a bit of our troops if we were to do that. So again, we don't have any alignment. Don't believe we could take much. Just move that over. Now we have it. So now you can see, because our Dragon Soul gives 15 souls every single time, boosted by the 150% on the Fairish Ra, we have a little bit of souls accumulated, and we can now use that to go and kill out one of our targets. So I'm going to throw this onto the Draculus there. He, of course, will not actually die to that damage, but that doesn't really matter, because all we have to do is throw one of the other AoEs that we have, like this, and he'll just go straight down, and hopefully that'll give us another Fairish Ra. We can retarget, and we get to clear the board a lot. So you don't really need to worry about not being able to cast Fairish Ra, since you can keep getting it up, and if you don't have one, then just get rid of the board, do it again, and then you'll just eventually kill them either with AoE or with the Fairish Ra poke. And there you go, you end up accumulating a really decent amount of souls too. Personally, I'm getting 275 with all my bonuses. I believe with no VIP bonus, you get either 250 or 225, somewhere around there. But if you happen to have a fully traded Fairish Ra in both of those mythics, definitely really nice to try. You can do it with some similar variants if you happen to be missing one of them. But if you're missing both of them, I don't believe you can do a team like this. Like, you can easily replace out Fairish Ra with, let's say, a Warlock if you truly had to with this team. And with the World Breaker, actually, I don't think you actually can replace the World Breaker. There is a troop now that does it, but there's no dragon that does the same role. There's the Grapple Pot. I believe she came in the previous version, but Queen Grapple Pot, or Lady, whatever the Grapple Pot is called, the Goblin Grapple Pot would be the alternative for that slot if you need to downgrade it. It's not a dragon, but it serves a similar purpose. It also doesn't have mana generation, but it'll still get the job done. Anyways, on to the next battle. We have the Bard, actually the final battle as well. So let me go switch over to the Bard hero class. This was, of course, the other hero class that ended up getting added into the game this version, both of which are really powerful. We already showed the dragon. Where on earth are you, Bard? Not in alphabetical order. What order is this even in? Oh, never mind. I think it came in, oh, I see what order it came in. It's in order of when they were added to the game, though all 9 or 7 of these were added at the same time, so I don't know. That's the weirdest order I've ever seen. I never realized they were that out of place. Anyways, Bard hero class. Let's get into the final battle here. So, Gurgulfa, Infernus, Dawnbringer, and Mercy. You can also run this as 4 times yellow. My personal Guild War variant of this is uses the new Scorpius as well. Let's see, where to go. Scorpius! Yeah. There it is. I use the Gurgulfa, Guard's Avatar, Prismatic Orb, and Scorpius. This uses both of the 2 troops that have the +1 to all stats, the +1 to all browns, and the +1 to all yellow. And since we have both of them as every single troop, you end up getting 2 to everything per turn, which is quite potent, of course. And regardless of how much time goes by, we just keep getting more powerful and more powerful by every turn. So really decent. Also, one other thing to mention real quick. Umberwolf into Explosion, very powerful. Any single troop that's ever going to be getting the Create a Darkstorm at the start of every turn, anything that ever gets that will be useful. Doesn't matter how useless its abilities are or anything else, anything that gets that will be pretty overused. Umberwolf is a little bit different, mainly because a lot of what he gets used with, as you can see, are red purples. So it's a little bit harder to really get him to function sometimes, because a lot of what he's amazing with is red purple. But still, these kind of teams, even though it doesn't look like they're barely covering anything, they can, once they get going, they just don't stop due to how much the Umberwolf assisted with the Infinite Storm. Anyways, final battle. The Gurgulfa, Infernus, Dawnbringer, and Mercy. I personally don't use the Gurgulfa Mercy combo that often, though it is still one of the stronger combos in the game. Mercy in general, I have been using quite a bit less, though that doesn't mean it has gotten any weaker by any means. Still easily the strongest epic in the game due to how big of a start it can give you, as well as keeping your lower targets alive. It's currently the only thing that's really good at making sure if you have a troop that's about to die, it'll make sure it stays alive. There are a few other ones, like let's say Emperina, but they don't have enough mana generation capability, or really any at all, to really make it worth actually casting it. It got a 1 lower mana cost this patch as well, but even with that, it hasn't really been any more usable. Other than that, one other small change, for whatever reason, they added 6 flat damage to Infernus. So now he hits 2 targets. So that's 12 additional damage right there for free that he got this patch. And it also hits the side 2 targets. So that is a potential 24 additional damage that they gave to Infernus. I honestly do not know why they gave it to him. Infernus is actually a really big powerhouse these days. I guess he was a little bit too low before, but I don't know. I think that was a little bit too big of a change that they made to him. He is quite popular these days, mainly because of, well, the buff that he got. Not only that, but he also gets to spread his damage a bit while still focusing it once the team gets smaller. Like right now, if he casts, that will easily wipe out the entire team. But he also gets a 5 explosion, and while 5 explosions might not seem like much, that is, you're exploding if it goes correctly. Well, every single explode is potentially doing 9 gems. So you're easily going to get around 30 gems by doing that, unless it happens to be a little bit unlucky where it lands. But still, you're going to accumulate quite a bit of mana from that, and you can also cascade into random stuff. And the fact that he has a firestorm, of course, any explosion into a firestorm, quite handy since it increases the chance that you'll end up getting extra turns, since it'll be more concentrated with the colors that are on the board. So right here, Sword to Mercy, go right into another Gorgolfa if there isn't any that are already cleared, and that should be matched. We can just get our mana, and now we can finish off with anything. Could get our Dawnbringer with all of our shields and everything. Of course, every turn that goes by, we end up getting that extra 1 to all stats. That is also quite powerful. Everything except our Mercy is getting it, though Mercy doesn't really need it. She's mainly there just to be a backline tank for all the Devours and just make sure that we get that initial mana to get everything rolling so we win our battles quicker. But anyways, guys, that will wrap it up for the best teams of version 3.2. If you have any of your own that you wish to share, definitely feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Most of what I showed today are just the ones that I have seen to be more powerful, as well as my personal preference of what I use. But of course, there are always plenty every single version to be using. Next patch will be bringing us a little bit more UI changes and hopefully some more balance. We'll have to see exactly what that brings, but so far this patch, I do have to say, was one of the best actually for getting new content that was actually viable. So I was really surprised about that. Other than the Kingdom, I do have to say. The Kingdom was pretty lackluster in what it gave. It basically gave us an Azura, and while it didn't show, it also gave us Merlion, which is a nice utility troop for like Red Guild War days and such. Where is it? Like this guy. Or not Red Guild War, I meant Blue Guild War. Well, you guys you can use it on Red too, but this guy, because he has a double silence, he makes silence a little bit more viable, and he also has Impervious, and everything that gets Impervious is pretty much good. But yeah, other than the new Kingdom, everything that they added was pretty solid content, so that's nice. It's always a little bit annoying when things just become dead immediately, but more often than not, most of the stuff that was added was pretty useful this time around. Anyways, guys, hope you all have a wonderful week. I will see you all later, and goodbye, everyone.